Yet A, thank you for joining us this evening for our cover crops. Sharon Sandman in Chia. At this time, I will give the floor over to Bryan Neztsosie, Diné College Land Grant Office. He is the project um, uh, coordinator. Go ahead, Bryan.
Yeah, hey everybody, I am Bryan Neztsosie. Auto Ninshige, my deskies Nishle, Auto Bashishin, Fujini, Shichi, Auto Kia Ani, Additionally. So, good evening. Thank you for joining in. Good to talk to you guys again. It's been a while. Please ask questions. You can send it to the chat box. I don't mind pausing. I'm going to go to everybody runs out of questions or Zoom shuts us down, either one. So without further ado, I'm covering cover crops. Cover crops can mean a number of things. One of the quickest definitions is a crop or flowers that you're planting in between crops. So for example, if you are planting corn, um, you've harvested your corn, you remove the stalks from your field, you've let the animals in to consume the residue, and then you're going to plant something afterward. Or if you have a hay crop, you've raised your crop, you've cut your crop, you harvested your crop, you baled everything, took it back home, you put your animals on your field, you let them consume the residue, then they'll be removed. So it's that crop that will come after that. So, and this can apply to your greenhouse. Doesn't necessarily just strictly apply to your fields. You can plant some winter crops in your greenhouse, in your garden beds, let them grow up. They'll, once it gets too cold, they will go dormant. Some of them who are annual plants, or if they're perennial plants, they'll continue into the spring. So there's a lot of options here. So there's always an option for this process here. So very basic. Up here, you see the tractor with the seed drill. You're planting your crop. Can be annual. I'm going to use for this example, I'm going to say an annual. I'll cover here perennial crops after I get done with this talk really quick. So you're going to be planting your let's say May. You're planting your field, you're getting your field prep, your field is leveled, you already got your soil sample, you know how much fertilizer to apply. If you're going to be using fertilizer, you have your seeds, and you start planting. You're going to be irrigating your field afterward, after you're done planting. At some point, you're going to be harvesting that hay. Or let's go with hay just for right now. Once you're done with that, it's been harvested, it's been cut, it's been dried. You're going to be baling your hay, and then the hay has been removed. You might repeat the planting process, or you're going to be irrigating again. And then once you're done with that process, you're going to be harvesting again here in about a few weeks' time, depending on what you're planting. Going back over, you would do the same thing for a perennial crop. You're going to be planting it. You might be planting it with an annual, let's say an oats, if you're planting a grass or another type of perennial, or even another type of annual. There are warm season seeds or cool season seeds. So different types of crops that you can be planting together. So for example, one might start a little bit earlier. Once those seeds have been harvested, the other seeds will begin to grow and take over the field. So those are some of the quick examples that I can provide for you. So
Bryan,
yes.
sorry.
No,
Are
go
you
ahead.
changing your slides? All we see is your title slide.
Oh dear. Okay. Let's fix this. How about now? Can you see it now? What do you guys see?
Okay, planting process.
Okay.
Okay, we see what you see, I think.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for letting me know. Planting process, you're going to be using a seed drill. If you do not have a seed drill, there are a few options. You can, if you have equipment like say a disc, you can disc your field. If you have a help, this is good. And then you can hand broadcast your seed, and then you can drag a chain. Everybody has a chain. Or if you don't have a chain, you can borrow a chain, a long chain to go back and forth on the field. So that is one of the options that, those are two of the options right there. If you don't have a seed drill or a seed planter. There are some organizations that have the equipment. All you have to do is let them know, and then they can plant for you. There might be a fee involved. That's going to be with your Water Users Association or your local farm board or your local co-op. So those are some of the options that they provide. Also harvesting and baling your crop. So just check with those local organizations. If you're really unsure, you can go with the cooperative extension office and ask them. If you know somebody who has all the equipment, they might be willing to provide the leveling service, tilling the field, plowing the field, disking the field, and getting it ready for you. So there are a few options there. Okay, moving on. So the example that I'm going to use is for a hay crop, but this can be applied to, again, to a corn field, to a watermelon field, to a pumpkin field, and so forth. So once you have harvested your crop, your cash crop, your corn, your hay, you've sold it, you've stored it. So now you have this field that's available. You can, unfortunately, you have to repeat the entire process. You have to complete, do the entire planting process. You're going to have to plant the crop, this cover crop for the winter. Unfortunately, we're kind of getting the tail end of the season right now. We would probably have done this, I would say, beginning of September. That way the crop has a chance to start to grow, can get the tail end of the monsoon season. Or the Water Users Association will do a cutoff date of when they're going to stop all irrigation flows to all the fields, and you can tag it on to the very end. So irrigation is going to be key here of when you can irrigate your cover crop. You're going to see some growth. Once it gets to be too cold, the plants will go dormant. They'll regenerate again because the root system is established. They'll get a kickstart in the spring, or the seeds might just stay dormant through the entire winter. It's going to snow on them, it's going to rain on them, but the seeds themselves will start to germinate next spring on their own. The only backdraw here is the deer, maybe they're going to start going into your field. If you already started your crop, they're going to consume it. If your fence is not well maintained, you are going to get cattle in there, deer, horses, your neighbor's sheep in there consuming your cover crop, which is a good and bad thing. Or you can also let your animals in there and can consume some of it, do a little rotational grazing, remove them off, and then just let the cover crop be. So there are a number of cover crops. There are a lot of them. I've chosen, these are pretty much my top 4 right here. So you have a bunch of annual grasses, or they have another name, like they contain seeds. So these are a number of plants. So my top ones are wheat, barley, oats, an annual ryegrass, or a triticale. So these are a winter annual. So just going through all of the characteristics, they are cold tolerant. They rapidly grow. The seeds are inexpensive. For example, a bag of oat seed is probably about 50 pounds. I would say is about $20 just to grow. Depending on your location, if your soil is high in lime, you have let's say your water user association, or they'll turn off the water a little bit earlier, or you don't have enough water to irrigate. They have some tolerances in there. The seeding rate, I'll explain that here in a little bit. Per acre, you're going to plant within 1 acre anywhere from 15 to 18 pounds per acre. So if you get a 20 bag pound of oat seed, you're a little bit over that, which is fine. You can always add more seeds into your ground. That's not a problem. Just to get over, say, to plant the 1 acre. So you're just going to multiply this depending on how many acres you have. If you have 10 acres, you're going to get right around 200 pounds of seed to plant your field. So that's a conservative estimate right there. So triticale is actually pretty good as a hay for cattle. They love it. They'll probably eat that before the alfalfa. Sorry, alfalfa guys, but this one is tastier. And then just depending on what seed is available to you, you can go to a local seed company, buy the triticale. This is probably a good segment to where you can do rotational crop plans right here. 1 year you're going to plant triticale, another year you can do barley, another year you can do wheat, you can do oats, you can do the ryegrass, and that will fit perfectly into your plan. And it's going to give a variety to your livestock for early spring feed, or even either late spring feed or early summer feed for your livestock. They're just coming out of winter. You've been feeding them bales of hay. This will give them that energy boost that they need, all the nutrients and vitamins that they also need. So it's going to be a win-win for you. The bright side of this is that you don't have to plant right away. You already got something growing out there. It's going to absorb all of that, the spring rains, the late snow melt off. So for your fields, you don't have to irrigate right away. The moisture will be there. The next one is an Austrian winter pea. I'll go through the pictures here in a little bit, and then just show you what the stalk of the plant looks like as well. So it's a winter annual. It's moderately cold tolerant. It has a drought tolerant, and this is the one thing I like about this one is that it's a nitrogen fixer legume. Same thing as alfalfa, it's a nitrogen fixer. The other attribute I like about this particular one is that it can suppress weeds. It's fast growing. It's going to outcompete some of the early spring weeds, or even the probably early summer weeds as well. It is traffic tolerant. You can drive on it. Of course, you wouldn't do that in your field. Everybody's going to be walking their fields. So it's traffic tolerant. For this particular variety, you're going to be planting anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds per acre. It's this seed, unfortunately, is a little bit on the bigger side. So you might need some specialized equipment for this one. You might need a seed drill that can handle this type of seed. You might almost use a corn planter to plant this variety. So that's probably going to be one of the factors here. Because of that implement or equipment available or not available to you, that's probably the only drawback I see on this one. The next one is going to be a cowpea. It's a summer annual. It's sensitive to the cold. It's a nitrogen fixer, just like the other snow pea. Has a drought tolerance, and it does well in poor soils. This one I just found out about recently, so I'm going to probably do some more work on this one. But just seeing that it does well in poor soils, it is drought tolerant, I think we could use this one here on the reservation, and it would do very well. For this particular variety, you're going to be using anywhere from 50 to 100 pounds per acre. Like the Austrian snow pea, it's on the big side. We might just be able to be getting away with broadcasting this and then just covering it up. So equipment wise, we should still be okay. The next one is a sorghum or Sudan grass. This is an annual also. It is sensitive to the cold. It's a fast growing annual. The root system gets very well developed. It is drought tolerant. It can suppress the weeds. This particular one grows very tall. If you have all the perfect conditions, you have irrigation for it, it can get very tall. I've seen a field, probably it is 6 feet tall in when some producers plant this one. So for this variety, the seeding rate is going to be anywhere from 15 to 40 pounds per acre. So this is what snow pea looks like. There's many varieties of snow peas. There's one that have a little black dot right where this one has a white dot inside of it. They all come in different colors. Just double check with the seed company. They're going to ask for your soil type. If you do get a soil sample, please check on the organic level of your field. If you need to add some organic or your nitrogen levels, your phosphorus levels, your potassium levels, please check all of those and plant accordingly. This is what the plant looks like. I really haven't seen this grown on the reservation, to be honest. There's probably a few people that have tried it. Other than that, I would say really nobody has grown this type of crop here on the reservation. Well, hopefully with the people on the call, we'll get some more people to grow it. Okay, moving on. Sorghum, just like the cowpea earlier, there are many varieties of sorghum or Sudan grass. They have different colors. This one has been grown here on the reservation. There are some producers that have grown this. I know Nappy has a variety that they're growing. It is great cattle feed. Probably just one thing is that don't let your cows or your livestock into the field when this is growing. You're going to have to wait till the entire plant turns brown. The seeds, this is what they generally look like. Again, they have different colors. There are different types of sorghum or Sudan grasses out there. So just double check with your seed company. Again, they're going to ask for your soil type, if it's irrigated pasture or not. Many questions they'll have, and then can go forward from there. This is the Austrian snow pea. This is what the flower type looks like. This is what the seed will look like. Again, just like the other two crops, there are many types of seeds. The seed company will ask you of your elevation, your annual precipitation, your snowfall load, and probably if it's going to be irrigated pasture or not. So just have all the information available for your seed company, and then they'll recommend the best one for your area. This one is winter wheat. Let's see, triticale looks similar to this. Barley, I believe it's a little bit, has a little sharper tip to it. It really does look like summer wheat. There's almost not much difference. Again, double check with your seed company. Know the size of your field, your acreage. If you're going to be planting 10 acres, if you're going to be planting 20 acres, and they will also have a seeding rate for specific crops as well. This one can be planted, I would say there's two ways to do this. One is that you can start planting your crop, and it'll be up to, like, say, have a growth to it, like say around this size here, maybe about 6 inches of growth. winter is going to be hitting, and then this will continue in early in the spring after the thaw happens. Or you can plant the seed, not irrigate it, but just leave the seed in your field, and after the thaw in early spring, it will start to grow. So there's at least two methods to planting a cover crop. The best one is to have some growth in your field. I'm going to go over this a little bit later, so hold on. So thinking about this cover crop, one thing that that just came to mind recently is that we have cornfields, people have cornfields, but why not have a companion plant? Why not have a cow pea or another variety of pea, or even sorghum grass? They could be the windbreakers. They're both, the pea is a nitrogen fixer. They're both drought tolerant, traffic tolerant. And why not have this be our cover crop here on the reservation? When we're not growing corn, or they can, again, be companion plants. You can have one row of corn, you can have one row of pea, another row of corn, and offset that. That way we're providing enough nitrogen for our corn, for our squashes, and for our melon plants. So this one will probably be a good blend here. That way, once we harvest the crop, we can also plant the pea, or not necessarily the sorghum, because the sorghum is mainly during the summer. So it would probably be a pea plant or another crop variety that would go well after the corn. Okay, the reasons for this is prevent wind erosion, water erosion. I know this picture here is a little bit dramatic, but it gets the point across. We want that soil to stay on our fields. We want no water erosion, because we have spent all of this money to get our field level. We want to keep the soil there. This is where a cover crop does come in handy, is that it's going to prevent the wind from taking the soil, from it to be eroded, to go into your neighbor's field. At the same time, we're going to be adding nutrients back to the field. Early in the spring, we're going to be preventing weeds from growing. So really, it's going to be a win-win. That way, we're not applying any type of herbicide on our fields to get rid of those noxious plants. So it's gonna, I think this will do very well for us. So the factors here are going to be the cost of the seed. Where are you getting your seed from? Do you have to order it from another company? There are a number of companies available already. There's some in Phoenix. There are some in Durango, Memphis, a little bit further beyond that point, Cortez would be another one. Where else can it be? You can also have seeds shipped to you. I know I did a project a few years back, and Granite Seed Company was our seed company that we went with. They shipped everything to us. We just unfortunately had to pay for the freighting, which was a little bit more than the seed, but that's how we could get all of our seed in bulk. A lot of the vendors, local vendors, didn't have the seeds that we needed for the project. There's another company, I believe in Colorado, it's called the Sharp Brothers. They are a big seed distributor. You'll see a lot of their seeds in local stores like Big R. What's another one? IFA. They will carry certain types of seeds. The other factor is water availability. If you do plant your crop, you can let it winter over. The seeds will stay in the ground. It's going to be absorbing the snow and the rains, early spring rains. So that can be your watering source. If you really pay attention to the weather, you could time it just right to when you hit the monsoon seasons, or when you're going to hit a rainfall. The other factor would be if you're using a tractor, the seed planter, irrigation water, if you do have to pay for it, and then harvesting your crop, your cover crop, and the late spring and early summer. Okay, with that, do I have any questions?
I have a question
Bryan,
for you.
Yeah.
Bryan, as far as your crop selection, say you haven't grown anything in a specific area, what crop would you start with and then rotate to build up the soil and then also um, add to it?
Okay. One of my questions would probably what are you feeding? Or would the crop go to like cattle, horses, sheep, or all of the above? Or is it just superfoot nutrients back into the soil?
I think cattle and sheep.
Okay. So let me go back to one of my examples. Let me go back to this. What's your soil type?
Soil type, not, I don't know. It's definitely not too silty, but I think it's like right in the middle between clay and silty.
Okay, you would probably be good to be planting a crop that has deep roots. For example, alfalfa. I'm only use this as an example. I'm not sure you plant alfalfa. It has a big root, kind of like how a carrot is, and it actually breaks up some of that clay, and it allows that root to go deep about 3 feet into the ground. So off the top, there's one plant. I forget the name of it offhand, but we need something with a deep root. That way it can break up that soil to allow more plants to break up the soil for you. That's one thing. But if you can plant it with a companion plant, one example of is that people will plant two plants simultaneously or two different crops. One can be, I keep going back to alfalfa, I'm sorry, but oats and alfalfa, they will plant them together. That way, as the oat grows, the alfalfa has a chance to also grow and develop. You won't see that crop the first year, but you'll definitely see it the following year. That's one thing that you can ask the seed company. They will make different recommendations. I know one year I planted an Italian rye, but I also planted it with a orchard grass, because the orchard grass needs a little bit of time to grow. So the companion plant, which was the Italian rye, grew first. It was fast growing. It had established itself, and then as it began to warm up, the grass seed took hold. It started to develop, and you could see the growth on it. It was slow, but it did very well using that type of method. There are some crops that they don't grow too well like that. Wheat is one of them. The other thing that you could do is that you could plant triticale. I've seen this at New Mexico State, is that they planted about 1 acre sections of triticale as a test, and all they were doing is tilling that triticale back into the ground. That is going to be one of the best options to promote organic material growth in the ground. So it's going to be a little bit of experimentation, but a grass will do very well for both cattle and sheep. Orchard grass is one of them. Switch grass is another one. It's going to have a little. The sheep and cows will eat it first before they will do alfalfa. I've seen that for myself. So at least experiment with one of those two crops there. There are other perennial grasses also. So it's just going to be which one is going to best work for you, really. Try a little section of your field, see if those take hold, and then if you can plant another variety crop and see how well they do. I think really that's the best bet. Somebody else had another
Okay.
question.
Okay. If you guys have some questions, raise your hand. I can unmute you. If not, type it in the chat box. Okay. There is a question. What is your thoughts on putting tall fescue grass seed?
It's going to be, that is a good grass seed. If you can plant it with another type of crop, probably an oat seed, depending on your soil, that's going to be a factor. Some plants, some crops don't do really well in sandy soils, unfortunately. It takes a hard time for them to establish themselves. And there are other crops that will do very well in sandy soils. Sorghum is probably going to be one of those type of crops. It loves the sandy loam soil. I haven't really seen it grown in a clay soil type yet, but that's to say that it's worth a shot. I'm pretty sure it'll grow there. Yeah, fescue is a great grass. Nothing wrong with it. It's fast growing too.
Okay. And then another question, you know, as far as reseeding your pastures, you know, how would that be done? You know, you don't want to break up the land. You really don't want to do nothing too intensive, but you know, to have a crop that would grow with what's already there, and which would be, you know, your alkali saccatone, dieta, the native grasses.
Mm-hmm.
So you know,
you don't have an airplane by chance, or a helicopter, do you?
no, not yet. Maybe we can talk to Jonathan Nez.
Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. You can actually start, you can fence off little sections and get it established with different varieties. And as that matures, because nothing's eating it because of the fence, those seeds will begin to drift. They will travel with the wind and they'll get established throughout. So you almost have to do like a checkerboard style and do a little fence off. And then that way it can start to spread the seed on its own. That's one thing I've seen this done commercially, is they actually will plant by airplane. They've done this in forest fire areas. Again, the plants themselves, they'll start to come back, but it's just a slow process. Another one is by helicopter. I have seen some people, they will actually just get out and walk. If your horse isn't too scared, you probably can put it on the back of them and then just take out handfuls of seeds and distribute that way. Hey, wait a minute. I seen this, but do you have any sheep? Because if you fence off an area, you broadcast your seeds in this little fenced-in area, but you put hay down and you put some sheep on it, I don't know, about 10 head or so, they will actually put that into the ground and they'll cover it in their own way, because they are absorbing the hay that you're providing for them throughout where you just distribute the seeds. But then they're also putting down manure. Of course, there's going to be a fresh manure, but it's an experiment. We'll see if it works. And then they'll actually plant it for you without having to use any mechanized equipment. That's one thing. Another one would be actually to, let's see here, let me go back on my slides. Is to get a tractor, unfortunately, and then use this no-till drill and drive across your land and seed it that way. That would be the more mechanized approach, aside from the helicopter and the airplane to plant for you.
Okay. And then another question, I don't know if you answered it, maybe you did, I didn't hear it. But also there is a question, how should I prep my small pasture and when should I plant the tall fescue grass seed?
Oh, let's see here. It's going to depend on the fescue. When does the manufacturer recommend that you plant it? But for field prep, if you're going to use fertilizer or not, There's some research that would indicate if you apply the fertilizer beforehand and then plant afterward, or you would plant your seed, get that established, and then distribute the fertilizer. Depending if it's liquid or granule, that is a little bit of a factor, because if it's granule, you have to, once you have spread that fertilizer, you need to irrigate it. If it's liquid form, you just need the spray tank and then apply to your crop. Be sure not to burn it. Please read the label and make sure all your measurements are correct, and you apply accordingly. Because if you get your measurements off on how much fertilizer you are using liquid in the liquid form, you can burn your plants if you have too much of the active ingredient in there. So be careful of that. If you have the equipment, you can till your field. You can use a disc. If you really have to, you can plow your field, disc it over, get it pretty close to the level. Broadcast your seed if you do not have the seed drill available to you. If you have a seed drill, you can use it. Distribute your seeds, plant them, and then irrigate over it. That's going to be the key, is irrigation. And then apply your fertilizer afterward, or if the manufacturer says beforehand. Make sure to at least wear the respirator when you're distributing the fertilizer. If you're doing it by hand, if you do not have a broadcaster to do it for you, let that get established, and then it's just going to be repeat on the irrigation. And that will probably be the key to getting established. You do have the option, once you're ready to harvest, to either let your animals graze on it, or harvest the material, put it into hay form, or you can till it back into the ground if it's an annual crop. That way you have the organic material there available for the microorganisms, and then you can plant something after that. Maybe a wheat, sorghum, maybe a cowpea to put the nitrogen back into the field. So a lot of options.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you. And then one last question.
Sure.
Does your land grant office assist farmers in planning out their fields and planting and assisting them, technical services? Is that available? Do you guys provide that services for farmers in your area, in Saley area, and then also Shiprock area and any other areas on the Navajo Nation?
That's a great question. I wish we had more extension folks. That way we could do that. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity or the equipment. Even like say the no-till drill, that is very expensive. You're looking anywhere from like say $10,000 to $20,000, and it is a heavy piece of equipment, but it is a great piece of equipment at the same time. Again, tractors are pretty expensive. If you get, I don't know, like a 60 to 70 horsepower, we're looking to spend anywhere from $60 to $70. That is not including the vehicle and the trailer to haul it. So this is actually an expensive endeavor, but we love doing it. So yeah, I just wish we had more of extension folks to do this. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to do it. We can advise people on, just like the crop listing that I provided. I can go a little bit more in depth. Unfortunately, a lot of our farmers, they don't do the soil. They don't test their own soil. So sometimes it's rather difficult to get them to follow something. Or they only want to plant one crop, which is alfalfa. Their heart and mind is just set on that, and Unfortunately, alfalfa consumes a lot of water. It is a good crop. Don't get me wrong. You can get four cuttings out of alfalfa, but there are other crops out there. Definitely native grasses can be used. The only drawback I would say using native grasses, or even like say another one would be orchard grass, is that you can only get the growth when it's cooler, because it is a cool season crop. So you're going to get it early in the spring and then later in the fall. Depending on how you look at it, you can put your animals on it, or you can turn it, let it grow, bale it, and then do the same thing in the fall. So you have your cover crop there. There are many ways to look at it. So it just depends. We will advise people on the best option for them. Unfortunately for the reservation, we do not have what you have the infrastructure to go large scale right now. I wish we did. I wish we had more underground piping. A lot of it's still above ground. That way we could use more effective mechanisms such as side rolls, or even a center pivot system. That way we could really maximize our water resources. So yeah, we have a lot of options. If we get the right plan in place, yeah, we can do a lot. We could be growing different varieties of crops, not just for livestock consumption, but we could actually grow seeds for human consumption. One type of crop is a millet. It comes out of Africa. A lot of these seeds do come out of Africa, but they're kind of grown all over the world. And they actually turned into food for people to consume. So a lot of native people, especially Navajo people, they have their heart set on corn, squash, and melons, which are good. But if we could also plant probably some of these cowpeas or even other snow peas, just provide that nitrogen fix back into our fields, we probably would be growing a lot. Okay, do we have any more questions?
Okay, no, now that you brought up millet seeds, it's for human consumption, and then also could you use it as livestock consumption as well? Yes, only because I've seen it grown in my mom's backyard accidentally. So I was just wondering, if it can survive out here.
Yeah, they can actually grow millet, and you can harvest the plant for livestock consumption, or you can wait for it to go to seed, and then you can harvest the seed. You actually can use it as bird feed. Inside of that, you can turn it into a meal. It's a small grain, kind of iffy if you could use it as livestock feed, but definitely human food. You can mill it. You can turn it into a flour. You can make noodles out of it. It's almost like, what was the other plant? I'll remember it later. But yeah, you can almost turn it into probably bread. You can use it as a flour substitute. Instead of going with the bleached white flour, you could go with millet. You could do this exact same thing with wheat. That can be turned into flour. That can definitely be turned into cattle feed, sheep feed. So there's a variety of things you could do.
Okay, nice. Awesome. All right, well, thank you, Bryan, for your presentation. There was a lot of useful information, and if you guys have any other questions, go ahead, raise your hands. If not, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. If you're able to send your presentation to us, Bryan, that way we could post it up on our Facebook page and have it on file.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you again, Bryan, for your presentation. Viewers out there for tuning in this evening to learn a little bit about cover. Forget to if you'd like more information, you can visit our Facebook page. There we have all our webinars that we have provided. It's on there. And then also on our YouTube, this coming month for October, we'll have presentation on ram selection, and then also greenhouse management. And we will send out more information as we get confirmation. There's our contact information, myself, Jesse, Jim, Sharon, and then also Jana. So don't forget to, when you exit out of the webinar, there's going to be a screen that pops up. Our evaluation will help us what other presentations you guys would benefit from. So with that, thank you again, Bryan, and thank you to our viewers and everybody that's participating tonight. Have a great evening, and we shall all talk to you next week.
The Native American Producer Success Project is a collaborative effort between Diné, Inc., a nonprofit organization, and New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service and Diné College Land Grant Office. The project is funded by the USDA's Office of Partnership and Public Engagement, Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers program. The goal of the NAPS project is to increase the profitability and long-term sustainability of Navajo farmers and ranchers. To achieve this goal, activities in 4 key areas are being undertaken to improve Navajo farm and ranch operations, increase Navajo farmer rancher knowledge of and access to available programs and technical assistance provided by the United States Department of Agriculture, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Navajo Nation, the New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service, the Diné College and Land Grant Office, and others. We also strengthen the organizational capacity of the Navajo Farmer and Rancher Congress to address the current and future needs of Navajo farmers and ranchers. And last but not least, facilitate Navajo farmer rancher use of USDA's NRCS, FSA, and RMA programs.